Hi, this is Randy of Randy's Roost and the Buy Any Bag Makers group on Facebook. In this video, I'm going to show you the basics of attaching bias binding when you go around a curve. So what you're going to do first is turn your work to the lining side. You're going to sew your binding onto the lining side first using an accurate 1/4 inch seam, and I use a 1/4 inch foot with a guide bar. That's what works for me. Some people find it helpful to use a zipper foot, especially if you are sewing a bulky seam. So you're going to leave a tail of binding so you have something to use when you join the ends. And I'm not going to do that here because I'm just showing you how to go around the curve. So I have the edges of my binding, the raw edges are aligned with each other, and you can pin this binding together every few inches if you feel like you need to hold it in place. And then you're going to align the raw edges of the binding with the edge of your quilted piece. And you're going to sew with an accurate 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to sew until I get to just before where the curve starts. Bear with me, I'm working in a small space, so I'm going to try not to bonk the camera. I'm going to try to keep my hands out of your way so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm keeping that guide aligned with the edge, so I'm getting an accurate 1/4 inch seam. So now I'm coming up on the curve. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to keep everything aligned at the edge. I'm going to keep the seam allowance as smooth as I can. The folded edge of the binding is going to start to lift up. That's what we want to happen, because when we bring the binding around the curve, that will make it lay flat on the right side. I know that sounds kind of backwards, but it works, trust me. So a lot of people find the stiletto really helpful for this. I tend to just use my fingers. I'm pretty clumsy, so I find that if I have an extra thing in my hands, it becomes a problem for me, but I know I'm definitely in the minority. Most people say that stiletto is a complete game changer, especially for binding. Okay, I'm going to go slow around the curve. Sometimes it's 1 stitch at a time, and I'm going to keep stopping to adjust. I'm going to make sure that my edges stay aligned, and again, that folded edge is going to lift up. Just 1 or 2 stitches at a time, adjust, check, another couple of stitches, adjust, check. It's not a race. Even after making, I don't know, 150 bags, I still go very, very slow, because I really don't like picking out stitches, especially on binding. Okay, and then once you go around the curve, you're back to a straight area, then the folded edge will lay flat again. And you're going to keep using the guide to make sure you keep the seam allowance accurate. Okay, and now I'll show you what it looks like on the other side. Okay, so when I bring the binding around to the front of my work, what I'm hoping to do here is just barely cover the line of stitching from attaching the binding just now. I want to just barely cover it with the folded edge of the binding. Okay, I don't want to try to pull it super tight so I'm smushing everything down there, because then when I sew this binding down, the stitching won't line up on the other side. The goal is to have the stitching fall out right at the edge of the binding on the front and right at the edge of the binding on the back. So in other words, you won't be able to tell which is the front of the binding and which is the back. They should look the same. Okay, I know a lot of people have a misconception that the stitching is supposed to fall out in the ditch. That's not true. It's supposed to be right at the folded edge of the binding. So again, I'm going to use that same foot. It's a 1/4 inch foot with the edge guide, and I'm going to use a top stitch length. For me, that's a 3.5. And again, I'm going to go slow. So as I go along here, you probably already noticed I'm doing this, but I'm going to tuck in any stray threads, any raw edges. I'm going to make sure they're all smoothed out underneath the binding as I go. Okay, now I'm keeping the 1/4 inch. Okay, and if you come across any wrinkles in your binding, you can smooth them out as you go. That's the other reason you go slow, so you can watch what's happening. Right there, it was starting to wrinkle, so I just smoothed it out with my finger. Okay, again, I'm stopping to adjust. Okay, and then take a look at what it looks like on the other side. Okay, so the stitching, I hope you can see, it looks pretty much the same on the front and the back. Obviously my bobbin thread is white, so you can tell that's the bobbin thread. And then on this side it looks like it's in pretty much the same spot. Okay, I hope this is helpful. If there are any other tutorials you'd like to see, let me know in the comments.